Good Friday morning, everybody. It's Juneteenth. We have a very stupid holiday, but we'll take it. We've got a day off today. We've got a 3-day weekend. Now, first of all, two things. I think there's a lot of stupid holidays, not just Juneteenth, but I think it's a particularly dumb holiday if you look into what it's really trying to celebrate and how completely pointless it is to have a holiday for that reason. Not to say that I don't even want to get into slavery in America as if slavery doesn't just change one form for another. Okay, if you're working today, if you're someone that's working on Juneteenth, you're you know controversial, but you're just as much of a slave in some sense as any other type of slave. But anyway, that's one thing. That's how I feel about it. Another dumb holiday. We don't need anymore. We got enough useless holidays. There are others, but that's one of them. But you're going to see the title of the video, and you're going to say also, oh, why does this guy hate soccer? Or why does this guy hate association football? But actually, the video isn't really about soccer or the World Cup at all. I've been enjoying the World Cup. I've been betting on the games. I've been winning most of the bets. There's a couple teams that have choked, but actually, I think at this stage in the tournament, it's actually rather easy to predict the outcome because soccer is a low-scoring game. So it's actually, you don't have any wild swings in the point differentials. So it's a pretty good sport to bet on, to be honest. The USA plays today, and I will be cheering them on. But we're going to respond to some of Andrew Tate's comments in this video that I saw this morning on Twitter. And Andrew Tate says, if you're coming together to cheer for the men's national team at the World Cup, but you're staying silent as your country's being invaded and your taxes are going up and all of these things, then you're not a real man, and your patriotism is fake. And I actually think he makes a great point. And you can make a great point about this in general regarding sports, that people that, a lot of fat slobs that sit by and cheer on, men that are much more in shape than they are, men that are much more capable, at least physically, than they are. And people will have a tribal mindset for a team that they have no participation in. But when it comes to society that we all should have an active participation in, people don't want to stand up and do anything about it. People don't want to stand up to high taxation. People don't want to stand up to mass migration, which is a bad thing. Both of these things are terrible things. I would say, if you can quantify what is worse, taxation affects everybody, no matter where you are. So I would say taxation is the worst. But mass migration, unchecked migration, anywhere is a bad thing. When I say that England is a country predominantly of white people throughout all of its history, yes, there have been conquests. They had the Norman conquest. They had the attempted occupation by the Romans back in the day. They had this, that, and the other. But we know England as a country of white people. We know the United States as a country that was predominantly founded by white people from Europe. White Anglo-Saxon Protestants, mostly. Or at least that is what England was. And it is not criminal to say that things are better when white people are in charge in white majority countries. It's no different if I were to talk about Japan or China or an Asian country or an African country or a South American country. Japan is predominantly Japanese. They are an ethno-state. This is why they succeed, because they have commonality. The same is true in China. It's mostly Chinese people. There may be, of course, there's definitely some diversity within the country. There could be some different ethnic groups, but they come together, at least at the level of the law. They come together and they respect the laws. And that's what America used to be. Despite the fact that we have many different languages in this country, English is actually not the official language, which a lot of people would be surprised to find out. Despite having many different cultural backgrounds, we have all come together under the law, under the Constitution. The commonality has always been the law, because it is better for governments to enact laws and to be preventative with preventing bad things to happen than having to come in later. So that's why we have laws and we usually follow them. And to just have this mass migration issue, particularly as it relates to the United Kingdom with the, I don't know if you can say the word on YouTube, but look into we're just going to say it, the rape gangs that have allegedly been happening over the years is actually astounding when you just look at the headlines. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I don't have all the details. That's for the British people and the British government to investigate and disseminate those facts. But you see all the time videos of alleged perpetrators being caught. We saw recently Henry Novak, I believe his name was stabbed by an immigrant, and the police left him to bleed out. Right, or it appeared they left him to bleed out, but you know what happened. And there should be massive outrage about that. That is the real George Floyd, you know. Sorry about George Floyd, but George Floyd, whatever happened there, it wasn't the racism that they made it out to be. At the very least, it was not an act of racism or they were trying to murder the guy. That was bullshit. And that was a false narrative created by libtards that wanted to put that out there and for some reason encourage people to go out and riot in the streets and burn down their communities and have all these DEI, as I used to call it, ESG programs. And this anti-white sentiment needs to end because there's no need for it, especially in otherwise white majority countries. If you want to have sentiment against somebody else, don't do it in their country. You can say whatever you want from a distance, but when you live in a country with a majority of the population being a certain way, your discrimination is ridiculous and it's not going to work. And there shouldn't be discrimination regardless, but there should be discrimination against foreign invasions. Okay, we invaded Normandy in World War II. We stormed the fucking beaches in World War II to liberate a country with machine gun fire raining down upon us. And now, an island like the United Kingdom is being flooded with mass migration because of bad policy decisions. Because of bad policy decisions. Where the fuck are the brave men defending their borders? Maybe they shouldn't be gunning down people with machine guns, but they can absolutely refuse people that are entering unlawfully. And I want you to take a look at the taxes that they're imposed upon expats in some situations. If you want to renounce your citizenship, if you have a large amount of assets, they can tax your assets even though you haven't sold them just because you're leaving the country. It's called the exit tax. A number of countries have this. And so we spend more resources trying to extort our own citizens than we do these illegal immigrants that have very little to offer and coming over to these countries. They just come in and apply for free benefits and receive them, but the people that actually live here and earn their keep are punished for it. And people are sick and tired of that. It's creating another mass migration of sorts. People are trying to leave. And it's not a good thing because you shouldn't leave your country when it's in turmoil. You should be trying to stand up and be the man that's going to solve the problems and say enough is enough. And that's why we have problems all over the place, because people are fleeing their countries. They don't want to live under their system of oppression. But you have people even in America that live in the country isn't perfect in the modern state. But it's such a great country. And people are saying they want to leave America and go where? There are very few scarce places on earth better to go. But we are fucking the system up because we have people that cannot be held accountable. The government cannot be held accountable for its policies or its spending. And we're increasing through either taxation or inflation. We are making life harder for the people that even have a legacy here in America, the people that have the ability to trace their ancestors back throughout the years. Even they are having a hard time, especially with the concentration of wealth being at the top, but that's mostly the boomer generation that has the concentration. So it's not so much the people that have worked hard as the people that have had an easier time period relatively to make money. Because you can make money doing what I'm doing right now, just talking into a microphone. But the inflation is where you get, that's where you get the surprise at the inflation. If we had this with no inflation, then it'd be wonderful. But we have inflation, and we have inflated populations. And there's nothing against these people staying in their own homelands, staying in their own countries. But when these people start migrating and they start undermining the native population, and they're committing sexual atrocities, and they're committing welfare fraud. Welfare itself is a fraud. There should be no welfare. We need to go back to a time before high taxation and social programs when we had philanthropy. And people took care of each other. People took care of their own communities without the middleman, without the bureaucracy, without, as you know, go listen to an Ayn Rand interview. You know, people that produce, they will take care of their means of production, and they will spend their money and allocate it as they see fit to help themselves and their friends and their family and their communities. Rich people don't want to shit where they eat. That's why you have a place like Monaco, where it's very hard to obtain citizenship, or at least it's very hard to maintain residence, because you have to have money to live there, unless you have a sugar daddy. Monaco is a very tiny place, and only the richest people, in most cases, get to live there. Okay, imagine if they were just opening the doors to Vatican City and letting anybody go in there. That's nonsense. So this idea that the Great British, they used to be great, that's happening in Ireland too. You see Conor McGregor posting about it. Conor McGregor, he's got some crazy things to say about a lot of things, but he's a patriot. You got to respect him for it, okay? People are sick and tired of the foreigners coming in and invading. And I think Osmongold had a great post this morning too. It's all interrelated. It's all part of the algorithm, but it's all interrelated. You cannot have mass migration and also have a welfare state. And Milton Friedman has talked about this before. When we had mass migration at the 1800s, at the turn of the century, in the 1900s, you had mass migration. But it wasn't illegal. We knew where the people were coming from. Most of them were coming from Europe. They were coming through Ellis Island. They were getting checked. We knew who they were. They weren't coming through the Mexican border, so the southern border, or the northern border. They weren't just flowing in here. There was a process. And the most important thing is the country was still young. We were still building out the country. These communities that now exist are getting invaded and undermined. They didn't exist before. So it was different in the time where America was still for the taking. All right, we still had, you had people moving out west. You had people moving to California because of the gold rush and out west. You had Chinese workers coming over from China working on the railroads. You had prospectors. They may have been American-born. They may have been coming from elsewhere. America was a land for the taking, and the people that came here, all of our great entrepreneurs that came here, like Carnegie, like Alexander Graham Bell, who invented the telephone, even though other people were close. Tesla, when Tesla came over here. In World War II, all the Germans, all the scientists that came here by choice, not because we forced them to, but the ones that came by choice. There's so many great inventors and great entrepreneurs that came to America because it was the land for the taking. But now that we have sort of a homogenized society, or we kind of had a homogenized culture in society, not based on race, but based on ideals and principles and the way that we live, our culture. We had a combined culture. We had a somewhat uniform culture across America. Now we're having the demographic shift. We're having political ideology shift. We're having viewpoints, propaganda forced upon us. And we're being forced to believe that it's a good thing for people to just come in and invade. And again, I just want you to picture your fucking ancestors that were storming the beaches of Normandy to liberate a country from an invasion. Not to invade the country, but to liberate it from an invasion. We had to invade in order to liberate it. Bit of a paradox, but you understand exactly what I'm talking about. The opposite now is happening with little to no resistance. We're just letting people come in. And they're doing, I guess, the people that are coming in what they might do out of desperation. And a lot of these people are coming in and they're starting to outnumber the natives because they're repopulating. Especially the Muslims. They're known for repopulating a lot. They're known for having big families, sticking in groups, pulling all their resources together, buying out the entire fucking community. And I suppose there's nothing wrong with that in and of itself. The problem is they're getting benefits. A lot of them, they're not coming over there with lots of money and working hard and earning it. They're getting benefits, and they're all taking the benefits, and they're increasing the cost of housing. You look at a study that recently said that and this was from the Federal Reserve, I believe, that said the cost of housing has gone up exponentially, something like 20%, based on the population going up, and it's going up because of the migrants. So everything goes up. Almost everything goes up in terms of cost, especially if no labor is being added. If people are coming over and just getting benefits and adding no labor in some cases, then that's a net loss for the society, because now you have more people to house and feed, and when they're not contributing, it's one thing to have people living on welfare that were born in your country, all right? You kind of need to take care of them, all right? They've earned it by birthright, especially if they're, for one reason or another, they're on hard times, and they can trace their family back a couple of generations, right? They're Americans. You got to take care of those people. We take care of our own, but it's not a responsibility, especially not the taxpayer, to fund someone else's way of life. Whether it's, again, you can argue against welfare even for your own people, but you have no argument for welfare for foreigners that don't even care about your language or your culture. They don't know who George Washington is. They don't know about the Norman Conquest when they come into the UK. They're not educated. They don't care. They're looking for where they can get handouts. And this applies anywhere. If you went to Japan and you thought you were just going to assimilate in Japan, they like you to stay there for a short time. They'll smile at you and they'll be friendly, but if you don't speak the language and you don't have something to offer them, they have very, very strict laws about migration, and they need to. And there's no reason for the UK to have anything less than the same standards that the Japanese have. Absolutely no reason at all that a country that used to conquer and colonize, for better or for worse, is now being conquered and colonized with little to no resistance. People are not standing up, or not enough people are standing up. And the government is full of shit. Almost every government in the world is full of shit. And the government is only as strong as its people are, and as smart as its people are informed about how it should be governed. You have people that are running away from the problems instead of running to the problems. The people that are running the government, a lot of them, are running away from the problems. Okay? We need to have better people in the government. We need to have better people in leadership positions everywhere. So Andrew Tate, why do I say the World Cup sucks? Not because necessarily soccer's stupid, even though I prefer many other sports besides soccer. I think it is kind of a pussy sport. They call it the beautiful game. I think it's the boring game for at least, 80 minutes out of 90 minutes. But Mexico and Korea had a good game last night. That was an incredible goal saved by the Mexican goalkeeper. That was a clutch goal. He kind of blocked it with his body. He fell down. He kind of scooped the ball he barely scooped that ball as it was going into the net. And he kind of tucked it down in his body, and he just kind of stayed there for a moment, realizing what he had done. It was an amazing save. But the World Cup sucks because people come together over sports rather than the things that really matter. You're watching a bunch of millionaires play a child's game, and you're cheering for them like they've cured cancer or something, instead of getting your ass up and trying to cure cancer, or at least solve the problems that are in your domain and in your realm of knowledge. And if you know that there are problems that need to be solved, you at least need to be vocal about it. There needs to be enough people vocal about it, and we need the people that are strong enough and fit enough to not abuse the power. They need to get into positions of power, and they need to make the most of it. So if you're coming together and you're cheering for soccer when your life is shit otherwise, then yes, I understand you need a break from the bullshit, but you need to have a break from the break and get back to solving the problems of the bullshit.